Poetry Center, bringing poetry to Patterson since 1980 at Passaic County Community College.
Our next reader is Vivian Shipley, and Vivian is the editor of the Connecticut Review. I have to say that not only is she the editor of the Connecticut Review, but she's also the person who resurrected the magazine and completely transformed it and made it a national journal. The Connecticut Review is published through Southern Connecticut State University, and Vivian Shipley is the Connecticut State University Distinguished Professor. She's published 5 chapbooks, and her 7th book of poems, Hard Boot, Poems New and Old, Southeastern Louisiana University Press, won the 2006 Patterson Prize for Sustained Literary Achievement and the 2006 Connecticut Press Club Prize for Best Creative Writing. In 2007, she was inducted into the University of Kentucky Distinguished Alumni Hall of Fame and won the Hackney Literary Award for Poetry from Birmingham Southern University in Alabama and the New Millennium Poetry Prize. A new book of poetry, All of Your Messages Have Been Erased, is forthcoming from Southeastern Louisiana University Press. And I want to say about Vivian that her poetry is very deeply rooted and very specific and can really tear the skin off everything we try to cover up in our lives. And I love what she does with it. I love her willingness to take a risk and to go to the edge in her poems, and her ability to craft a poem so beautifully while at the same time being willing to step out on the edge. Let's welcome Vivian Shipley. She says I have to stand up here while she hugs me. I said, I really envy her. I envy her legs. Look at the legs, they're taller than I am. It's unfair. I have short, fat little jeans.
I'd like for you all to notice that she did not emphasize my youth or my energy.
But you have an enormous amount of energy.
I had the disconcerting experience. I turned 65 last summer, and I was so excited because I was going to get senior citizen rates. So taking the train in from New Haven, my first time to get a senior citizen rate of $18.50 round trip, which was fabulous. She didn't even want to see my driver's license. I was like devastated. I thought, she thinks I look 65. There you go. But thank you, Maria, for being here. I always love to come here. It's the nicest audience I read to anywhere. People have a lot of talent, a lot of life experience, and it's just a wonderful place. And Maria has single-handedly, as you all probably know, created this community, created this environment, and it's really very remarkable. I think I clap for her. I'm going to emphasize her energy, even if I don't emphasize her youth.
Don't emphasize her youth. Nobody will believe you.
I thought maybe today I'd sort of read you a gamut of poems that have to do with my life. Maria was talking about my writing, but I've always pretty much written about what I was doing. I wasn't one of these people that had a kind of life where I could travel around the world and write about being in El Salvador or my latest 6 months in France. Everybody I knew used to seem like they were going to France. I stayed at home and kind of worked, and so that's what I've done. And I didn't start writing poetry till I was in my 30s. I never had written a poem in my life, as far as I can remember. And I'd already gotten a PhD from Vanderbilt. It seemed like a good thing to do to have a job. I was always very security conscious, having grown up kind of poor in the country. And when I was 31, I was given birth to my second son, and they discovered I had a huge brain tumor. So once the brain tumor was removed, you can judge for yourself whether I ever became normal again. But I did start writing poetry then, and this is why I've started writing, and I haven't been able to quit. And I do see myself really more as a born-again poet than one who grew up thinking they always wanted to write poetry, love words, that kind of thing. I can't really, in honesty, say that. So I'd like to read you a poem about this experience. The poem is written from at the time when I was about to give birth to my third son. I had had the tumor with my second son, and the doctors were very worried when I was giving birth the third time that I might die, that, you know, the pressure and so on in my brain would do bad things. But I decided to go ahead and have my son Matthew anyway. But this is about that experience. It's called Praying Be Whole. I hold my breath as the ultrasound lines the shape of skull, thumbs, fingers, like germinating beans. Lungs not yet inflated, ribs thin as twigs, the aorta. I name arms, legs, spine of Matthew, the third boy to be stuffed under my heart. I have a bad memory. Can't recall giving birth to my second son, Todd. I was pregnant, but with a growth that did not blossom as he did. A tumor in my brain didn't part my hair or sprout from the bulb, bigger than an amaryllis, hidden above my right eye. Like a tomb, bone does not swell. Early in the morning, Caesars jumped me as if I were a jumping jack, a puppet on strings. Todd had to tear his way through and out of me into his first afternoon and turn for milk, for life, to the hands of the stranger who fingered his cheek. No way to scalpel the heart. His cry stayed inside me to fill my breasts that were left to burn, unplucked as live oak leaves that hang on to be tormented by winter wind. Even if he could have sucked my nipples, Todd's body would not have shielded me from the arteriogram, femoral stick done from a textbook diagram. The technician did not know who I was, who was being entered, or when a clot might break loose. Smell was not my baby's breath, but sour stabs of the surgeon's breath as he pulled down his mask to tell me the news was good. Only half of my skull would be replaced, and the meningioma could be removed. Vain as ever, I knew that hair grows back on the dead. A faucet of anesthesia dripped. I held my doctor's wrist, as if asking him to go with me to the confrontation of something. A hospital sheet was not eased over my eyes. Breath of desire returned. Today, a nurse pins up a Polaroid of Matthew burrowing in my womb. Like weathermen, new doctors have posted my delivery chart with alerts, given me storm warnings. The tumor souvenir joints in my fingers have stiffened, as if from deep cold, and I can't stitch at heirloom quilt. If I do not live to hold this third son, Matthew will have these words of love he can wrap himself in or hold up as a flare. After I did live and so on, I had ended up having 3 sons and went through a long period of my life of being a single mother, working full-time, and having 3 kids. And mainly what I can remember is being tired. I was tired all the time, but it always seemed to me like every time I wanted to write or do anything, my kids were, there holding onto my leg. And I used to tell them, like, don't bother me unless you're bleeding from the mouth or head. And occasionally they were, and they would come up and interrupt me. But this is a poem about that, and I referred to this poem in my workshop. Originally, I titled this poem Jack Tales, and nobody was interested in it. I mean, time after time, I got lots of rejection notices, big piles. So I renamed it How Many Stones Weighted Virginia Woolf's Pockets, and all of you are probably familiar with the fact that Virginia Woolf drowned herself by weighting down her pockets with stones. And I think all of you probably have had the experience of having something, push you over the edge or pull you under, and maybe it's just a little bitty thing, but it's because things have accumulated, one thing after another thing after another thing, and it's just that little final something, little pebble even, that can pull you down. So once I put this title on here, everybody wanted this poem. It's called How Many Stones Weighted Virginia Woolf's Pockets. A bather rising from Long Island Sound, dripping breast. It's taken me a long time to surface through gutted chickens, shucked corn, carrot scrapings, bean husk, and potato peels. To have no sons, dog, cat, house, or garden still seems natural. It's a shock to find how far gone life is, how widely I have drifted. A body that could not stay shut, my job description read birth, with veins breaking to feather the back of my knees in crimson. Yellowed sweater stretched tight over my stomach. It was not just my life that weighted me like a split shot crimped on my fishing line. In chem, I'd learned why I shouldn't bite lead sinkers with my teeth, but not to avoid habits that seeped in, hardening to mold all the life I could hold. Milk rings, cereal bowls to wash. Waiting for oatmeal as I bent over to brush the underside of my hair, all three sons sat, impatient. To get my attention, one swallowed a penny on a bet with his brother. My voice rose, a hand swatting air as flies, shut up like my desire, swarmed inside the Jackson press over the peach cobbler, left over from supper, and beat their wings against its doors. During this period when I was frustrated with not being able to write, sometimes I did a lot of writing, but I didn't really have the energy to try to send my work out for publication. As I was referring in my workshop, I really just started when I was around 50, when my kids were gone, to really try to submit my work and send it around. So I would like to say for you in the audience who are getting older, not old, that it's never too late to start, and I'm, if not quite living proof of that. I just worked on the things that I've been writing for years and finally had the time and the energy to start submitting. And those of you who are trying to publish know that it's as much a job to send your work around as it is to, try to get it written. It takes a big effort. And while I was a single mother, I was trying to be a mother and a father. The father of my three sons was not very actively involved. And one of these things that I did was to try to teach them baseball. Now, I can't catch, I can't hit, I can't do anything. I couldn't fish. I had a hideous experience in the Pine Car Derby. Did any of you ever have to go through Pine Car Derbies? Yeah. Well, our car fell apart before we even started the thing. The wheels fell off, and of course, who did my son blame but me? And so this is a little poem about that period of my life, and it's about baseball. It's called Strike 3. Trained to sit in parks, amnesia of sun, sweat under my breast because he sucked them. I can't pitch a baseball low, outside curve, sinker, hook, or right down the middle. No Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa. I'm also not Babe Ruth's granddaughter. Didn't give birth to a grandson, creating another Sultan of SWAT. As Eric swings and swings and swings, I blame myself, and so does he. Why should I know that the batter tugs his cap while a catcher reverses his? Or that pitchers rub new balls and a base stealer balances like a traffic cop with his white gloves pointing opposite ways? I answer my son with a question Walt Whitman asked Tom Harnett. The fellow who pitches the ball aims to pitch it in such a way the batter cannot hit it? No underhand pitches on this field, I tell Eric, no softball. Obvious moves like pawing the dirt with your foot or lifting your leg bent. Send a telegraph to home plate. Spit on the ground. Appear confused. Afraid, just up from the minors. Have a face that couldn't tell a lie. Your arms should flirt, keeping men on base off balance by never hitting the mitt the runner sees you aim for. Let the ball float, the kite, the string invisible to the batter, who will learn the wild pitch is winged. Deadeye, too swift for detection and final. And I'd like to say that I think that is also basically good advice for life. Never aim for the mitt that you never appear to be aiming for the mitt that you're going to try to hit. I did get married, and my long-suffering husband is sitting downstairs. He takes me around places and then retreats, afraid that I will read a poem about him. And he's so hard of hearing he wouldn't be able to hear me anyway. But I am going to read this poem about him, and it's spoken from the point of view of a stepfather. Any of you in here who are step-parents or who have been raised in a home with step-parents know the kind of tensions that can be created. And one person is the natural father, which naturally makes the other one the unnatural father. Step-parent is something many of you may have had hurled at you. You're not my real father, my blood father. And so it can be a very difficult position to be a stepmother or a stepfather. And so this is a poem about that. It's called The Stepfather Speaks. Do years add layers as silt does, filtering down through a river, flowing quietly, sure of its direction, as we have been for 14 years? There was no ritual for becoming a family when I married your mother. Our three last names stayed separate, were not blended into one word we could stencil on the mailbox. I did not understand your mother's anger at the years she could not erase by removing monograms from silver, by changing your initials to her own. At times, her rage was a fire, scorching all ground around us. Peace like the dandelions we dug out year after year, jagged spears of green spreading out to yellow carpets, crept in, pushing back the blackness farther and farther. One day it was faint, a ring surrounding us, and then it was memory. Because it is easy, the metaphor of planting comes readily. So common, but I can't think of another comparison that would not be contrived, that would be natural for a stepfather's love that is not. What I did not seed, I can harvest. The earth has been deeded to me. Yet, as I stand at Sachem Field waiting behind the soccer post, I sometimes fall silent, not screaming out, yes, as other fathers do when their sons score a goal. Another man's name is broadcast over the PA system and slaps my ears. At the fall sports banquet, after being picked all conference and MVP, you called me up to the podium. While we stood posing for the North Haven Post, need to see my name engraved on you like a trophy I'd mount in the hall, fell from my heart. With no words in our vocabulary for blood, own, or real, we each grasped a handle. There was no step or hyphen labeling love, bridging us, the trophy we shared. Jim was up here reading. I realized that we had an awful lot in common. I wasn't going to read this poem, but it's my outhouse poem, and I'm now going to read it. I grew up in the country in Kentucky on dirt farms, unfortunately not the horse farm category that many of you may be familiar with. And when I came up east, I was doing the best I could to hide my background. I experienced for the first time what I consider to be really serious prejudice People laughed at the way I talked. They were sure I was absolutely ignorant. I was admiring the accent that you had when you were reading. I had a pretty strong accent. I've been up here so long now it's gone. But people made fun of me, and I didn't like to wear shoes, but I did wear them out in public. That was good. But I tried to hide who I was, and then I started to believe and understand the value and beauty in my heritage. And so this is a poem about that. This is a stage in my life, I suppose, when I came to terms with who I really was, my own background, and tried to attempt to start celebrating it in my writing and my poetry. This is about a little club in New Haven, Connecticut. Now, I teach at Southern Connecticut State University, which is a state school in town. There is another school in town in New Haven. It's called Yale. You may have heard of it. 4 letters, each now about $13,000, $14,000 a piece per year. And people at Yale, anytime I meet them, they have no idea where Southern is. And where is that? It's about a mile away. And so I quit even answering these kinds of questions. But there's a little club there called the Elizabethan Club. And it sounds like its name. And every Friday they have a vault with big Shakespearean manuscripts in them. First folios, millions of dollars worth of manuscripts. And every Friday they open that vault when they have tea. They have tea and sandwiches 5 days a week. But on Friday, you can actually go in that vault and handle first folios of Shakespeare. Just pick them up and do anything you want to do with them, I guess. And so this is a little poem about that, picturing myself in there with the manuscripts in the Elizabethan Club and remembering my relatives in the country and trying to picture them sitting in there with me and these people in their British accents, you know, analyzing Shakespeare's long-lost sonnets or whatever they analyze. It's called Friday Tea, Opening the Manuscript Vault at the Elizabethan Club, Yale University. Afraid I'll sneeze, I won't touch a first folio of Shakespeare offered by Beinecke Library's curator. Should I explore, as an academic question, of course, the purity in Elizabethan speech of people confined to Appalachian cricks and hollers. Leaving Kentucky for New Haven, I knew my syllables would unwind, spill to entangle, and mark me like a blue ribbon stuck on the prize pig at a state fair. Trying to forget the lope of my accent like a pink shawl crocheted by my Aunt Hazel, I had deliberately left on a chair. I shortened vowels, pulled at imaginary strings with my tongue, extended diphthongs with a tuck of my jawbone. Still, like signals from men trapped in Harlan County mines, there were words clawing in me. In the club library, I watch a man drink Earl Grey tea, his little finger a comma. And I think of my Uncle Paul, with a soft rag of voice, but no nobleman's British accent, who was so polite he held a cup to his lips to catch tobacco juice instead of spitting. I want to hear the hillbilly in my voice, reclaim parcels of my life that I had needed to keep tied. A real gosh darn it, this afternoon I might say a sittin' and a rockin', without explaining that the use of the a prefix strictly before verbs ending in ing turns out to be consistent in mountain dialect. As I described that old woman stumbling up that there hill with a poke and a pig walking right beside her, my father saying, "Let me ride behind you on that," meaning save me the sure bet. All the members surely will circle me in the garden to hear a fur piece, no ready-mades, a handed-down story, young'uns, tamari at sunrise. If I don't lose my audience while reading my new poem about our outhouse, using an old Sears Roebuck catalog for toilet paper, maybe just one Lizzie will cry out forevermore.